I'll call the town of Estill, November 12th, 2020 council meeting into order. Mr. Hadwin, would you lead us in the invocation, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Dear gracious and most heavenly Father above us, we ask that you continue to pour your blessings upon us during this time of the year that we're approaching the holidays. We ask that you be with us as council members as we conduct the business of this town to make the lives of our citizens better. We ask that you be with each and every one of us that the citizens have entrusted with the knowledge to lead this town for their betterment, to make good decisions to Heavenly Father, and where we disagree, help us find a compromise that will be most pleasing to you and to the betterment, once again, of our communities. Now we ask that you continue to be with us through this holiday season as we prepare to give you thanks this month for all our many blessings. For these things we ask in your holy name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you, Councilman Hadwin. This time, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands,
under God,
under God,
and justice
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 4, approval of September 2nd, 2020 special call meeting minutes. Council, have you had time to review minutes? And if you have, I will entertain a motion to accept these minutes.
Mr. Mayor, in order, I would like to make a motion that we approve the September the 2nd, 2020 special call meeting minutes.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand, stating aye. Aye. And item 5, approval of October 14th, 2020 council meeting minutes. Council,
So moved.
who is that?
Right here.
So
So
we have
moved.
a motion on the floor from Savino.
Second.
Second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand, stating aye. Aye.
Uh-oh, we lost the mayor.
Real spaghetti here.
I got disconnected somehow. Was it just me?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was just you. We lost you.
Okay. I've got satellite internet, so maybe a storm cloud interfered. All right, well, motion carries. Item 6, approval of November 12th, 2020 council meeting agenda. Council, there is one thing that we need to add to this agenda. It was last minute, but it's something that Ms. Miller it needs to speak on with the advice of the attorney as to something that we need to address. Ms.
What we
Miller?
need to add is, I'm sorry. What we need to add is the land lease with tree-free biomass solutions. And it would go in place of letter H.
Land lease with who? Bio?
Tree-free biomass solutions. Did everybody get a copy of the lease? My second email is the one that counts.
Yes.
Yeah, I just received it.
Ms. Miller, would you like
Ms.
to add
Golden, did you get it?
I
I'm
have it, but
sorry, sir.
Would you like to add anything to that? The reasoning for what we're doing? We have a DHEC. I can explain something. We have a DHEC requirement to have the Arundel Donax removed, and the client has not removed the debris as they're supposed to, and they basically want us to extend their lease. Upon that, they will clear it. But the thing is, that they haven't followed through with their contract, and it is the attorney and the administrator and my stance that there's no way. I mean, they've got to do better. They've got to abide by the contract they signed. Mr. Harvey or Ms. Miller, either one would like to add to that.
I would reserve the time on the agenda to actually discuss it in length, unless you want to do it otherwise, Mayor.
No, that's the gist of it. We can discuss it at length, but that's what, we need a motion to amend to add the contract for tree-free biomass.
Yes, sir.
I can make a motion that we amend tonight's agenda, the November 12th agenda, adding as item H, the consideration of the contract for tree freeze biomass,
I second it.
It's been motioned and probably second. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand, stating aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. There is no old business. Item A underneath new business is presentation of the audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. We have Mr. Randall Cooper with us here tonight. Mr. Cooper.
Okay, I'm gonna try to share my screen. Okay, I'd like to present the results of the June 30, 2020 audit. Mr. Cody Teeter was the on-site auditor. He's not able to be with us tonight, so I'll be going through the presentation. This is our agenda. This information is being presented as an executive overview of the results of our audit of the financial statements of the town. We're gonna go through the audit opinion, emphasis of matter, internal control matters, an overview of the financial statements, and then a summary. On the audit opinion, you did receive unmodified or clean opinions, which is the highest level reporting assurance from its independent auditors on all sections except for governmental activities. The reason that you didn't receive one for governmental activities because GASB 34 took effect in 2001. The town did not have sufficient audit evidence of the town's governmental activity, capital assets. And so because of that, you will have a modified opinion in that area until those assets become not material to the financial statements as a whole. We do evaluate that every year, but currently you still have to have a modified opinion for that area. So in our opinion, except for the effects of the matter described above, the basis for qualified opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material aspects the financial position of the governmental activities of the town of Estill as of June 30th, 2020, and the change in its financial position for the year ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. On your emphasis of matter, the town did recognize a decrease in net position of $366,000 in its governmental activities before transfers from business type activities. The town has experienced similar losses in prior years. The primary source of these losses is from the police department. Police department expenditures made up 65% of total governmental activities expenditures in the current fiscal year, and made up similar percentages in prior years as well. Revenue produced from the police department only made up 4% of the total governmental activities revenue in the current fiscal year, and made up similar percentages in prior years as well. This resulted in $1,045,000 loss in net position from police department operations during the current year. The business type activities did have an increase in net position of $353,000 after transfers to governmental activities. Business type activities cannot continue to support the town's governmental activities. In order to improve the town's current financial condition, the town needs to find ways to reduce police department spending, eliminate services, or increase unrestricted revenue in other ways. To continue, the town management does have a plan, and it's in the financial statements. The town management is aware of the financial situations and the process of continuing the following measures in an effort to correct these financial difficulties. In the business type activity section, they want to refinance debt through United States Department of Agriculture, further restrict procurement processes by obtaining approval for expenses over $50, implement an electronic water usage reading system to increase efficiency, which could possibly lead to a reduction in workforce, and apply for more grants from Rural Infrastructure Authority and other organizations. For governmental activities, they want to review / increase business license fees, further restrict police department procurement processes by obtaining approvals for expenses over $50, review staffing needs in the police department, implement further reduction in workforce possibly, apply for more grants to further reduce expenditures. And management is currently in the process of continuing to implement the steps mentioned above. They're also considering other strategies as well. In the event the town is not able to correct the underlying issues causing the deficits, other measures may need to be considered, including possibly contracting with Hampton County to provide police services, budget freezes / further staff reductions, or further reduction in services offered, and expense reductions. Internal controls, we do test internal controls as part of our audit. We don't have any findings. The only reason we had to issue a letter this year was because of the going concern and the issues with the expenditures I just talked about. But other than that, you do have a good system of internal controls in place, and things are being done as required. On an overview of the financial section, the town's net position was approximately $9 million at the end of the fiscal year, which was an increase from approximately $150,000 when compared to prior year. Total revenues were $3.6 million. Total revenues include property taxes, business license taxes, unrestricted state aid, fines, fees, and assessments, capital grants and contributions, water, sewer, and refuse charges for services, and miscellaneous revenues. Total expenses were $3.5 million for the fiscal year. Total expenses include administration, public works, police, fire, water, sewer, and refuse departmental expenses, as well as interest and miscellaneous expenses. The town's net position increase of $150,000 in the current year was lower than the town's net position increase of $500,000 in the prior year. Major factors that caused this was prison water and sewer revenues being significantly decreased due to the COVID pandemic. Police fines, fees, and assessments decreasing by approximately $85,000. Capital grants and contributions decreasing by approximately $230,000, all while overall governmental and business type expenses increased by approximately $50,000. Capital grants and contributions decreased majorly due to CDBG project funding decreasing between the 2 years. In summary, the town again did receive an unmodified audit opinion in all areas except for governmental activities. The emphasis of matter paragraph was included in the audit opinion, and a separate internal control matters letter was given to the town due to the losses that are continuing to be funded by the business type activities for the governmental activities. And financial position did increase by $150,000 during the year. And we do thank everyone for their assistance during this year's audit. It's been a strange audit just because of pandemic going on and everything, but they were very hospitable and got us everything we needed as needed. And we were able to complete the audit as required by your debt covenants. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council, are there any questions at this time for Mr. Cooper? Mr. Cooper, I'd like to thank you and your team for all y'all's hard work and dealing with this situation, but mainly and having to deal with the situation that we are in with with COVID. So I appreciate y'all's diligence and working with our town very much. Mr. Savino.
Just be real quick. As far as the police department expenditures, I know there's no hard and fast rule on this, but for some of the other towns that you guys audit, what kind of percentage do you see police department expenses typically making up on their governmental activity side? We're at 65%. Is there kind of a bracket or a range that y'all see?
I can't give you a range just because every town's different. It just how many police officers they feel they need. I would say you would want to, I would definitely think that the number should be, I would say closer to 35 to 40% at the most. But again, every town's different. Some towns feel they need more coverage. Some feel they need less. Some have more help from the counties that surround them. And so it's really hard to give you an exact percentage, but I would say it definitely would be less. The other issue is the offset of the revenue. A lot of times when you have a larger police force, you would see a larger revenue coming in to offset that, which isn't necessarily the case, at least this year for sure in the town, and in prior years as well. I don't think it has been a large. I'm not saying that you have to, but a lot of times when you do have a larger force, you would see a larger increase in the revenue that they are getting from tickets and fines and fees.
Is that something you typically see? I mean, I know not typically, but is that something typically you see with a larger police force? You'll typically see a larger revenue behind them for the ticketing and fines and that kind of stuff.
I would say you would see a larger one if it's a high traffic area, because if it's a small town with a large police force, it's not a high traffic area, then you're not going to see the larger revenue. I mean, that's the other side of it, because it's not all coming from in town fines and fees. It's people traveling through. So it really depends on where the location of the town is.
Thank you.
Council, are there any other questions for Mr. Cooper?
No questions from me.
Mr. Cooper, we appreciate your time meeting with us through Zoom, and you don't have to stay with us for the rest of the meeting. I'm sure that you have things that you need to attend to,
Yep.
and we will be following your directives as best we can.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
All right, council, at this time we'll move on to department reports. As normal through the pandemic, I've always stated, asked y'all if y'all have been able to review these reports, go through them, and do you have any questions you can, myself and Ms. Miller will take back to the departments and try to get an answer as soon as possible for anyone. So we are at the police department report. Are there any questions?
I would just like to say, Mayor, I would like to extend, my appreciation to the police chief and his officers at this time, comparing this month's report to last month's report. It looks like they've been doing some more patrolling. And so I appreciate that. The citizens are noticing it. I've had several citizens tell me that they have seen more patrolling in their neighborhoods. So I would just like, to extend that of information to the police chief and let him know that the citizens are aware that they're out there. So good job.
I will make sure Councilman Howland, the chief, I talk to him on a pretty regular basis, mainly because he's got a young child and I've got a young child, and his is a little bit older than mine, so I asked for some pointers what to expect in the next week. But I've heard the exact same things from the citizens, and I think they're doing a fine job, and I commend them on that. Any other questions?
I can also say too, Mayor, echo the same as well. I was hearing good reports of the chief and his officers are doing a fine job. In fact, I had one on yesterday. So I'm very proud about that.
It's always a good thing, a very comforting thing to hear, especially during the times that we're in. That our citizens are supporting our officers because they're the ones who are keeping us safe. I'll make sure that they know that. Um, if there aren't any other questions about the report, we move on to safety and recreation. Are there any questions there or statements?
Questions?
All right, well,
No
I
questions.
will let safety and recreation know. I know they're still doing their job on a daily basis, and we appreciate everything that they do. Moving on, fire department report. Are there any questions or statements that need to be brought forward?
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to say this. A lot of people don't know that we're the only fire department in the county that participates in the MDA Fill the Boot drive for muscular dystrophy. I think they did very well this year based on the report. They collected over $1,568. That's down from previous years, but considering the pandemic and all the challenges, I just want the citizens to know that their fire department got out there in September in that heat and collected money to help children with disabilities. And that's a lot of money during a pandemic when people really don't have money to give. Our citizens stepped up, and that says a lot about our community. So thank you, citizens.
Yes, I'd like to thank the fire department for their involvement in that, and the citizens for what they were able to give, because that is a very noble and kind gesture for what they do for MDA, and our fire department needs to be commended for that. And I know a fellow who can take that back to him, Mr. Hadwin. Let him know how much we appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'll let them know in 2 weeks.
All right, sir. All right, if there are no other questions, we will move on to Public Works, Water and Wastewater. Are there any questions about the report given?
I would just like to say they're doing a fine job of putting up the Christmas decorations, although it was raining, but they were out there trying to get them up.
Bless their hearts.
We appreciate what they're doing, and they've been doing a fine job at it.
I actually saw the guys today, and they were. Hampton told me he was calling the rental company because it was moving a little bit slow, but they were diligent at what they were doing. It looks good, and I know the citizens will be happy to see those lights. Everybody kind of gets a kick out of that, especially during this time of the year. I will let them know. Any other questions, statements?
I would
Yes.
just like to reiterate what Council Member Bolden said. Getting out there, putting those lights up in the weather today. I think we're one of the first municipalities in the county to do that. Christmas is coming a week earlier this year, and I think we all can use a little bit of merriment and joy right now with everything we've gone through in 2020. And so I just want to say thank you to Mr. Hamilton and his crew for staying the course and making this happen earlier this year.
Make sure that they get that message. All right.
I did have a question, Mayor. How many of the new lights we purchased this year? Do you remember?
How many we purchased? I can't remember.
Ms.
Miller?
We didn't purchase any this year. I think those were all purchased last year. Is that correct, Ms. O'Banner?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes.
How many was it?
We didn't purchase any this year.
I'm saying
Approximately
this year
20
because
some pieces.
Huh?
Mayor Pro Tem, it was approximately 20 some pieces.
Okay.
You're talking
Yeah.
about the Christmas lights?
Correct.
Yes.
Right, yeah, you're correct. It was last year. I'm saying this year because it's the first time it's gonna be putting up. Okay,
Our memories are slipping due to not being in and not getting to see stuff as usual. Because I was still thinking that we had purchased some this year, but now I'm remember that it was last year.
all right, I can hear you.
Any other questions?
No questions, Mayor.
Moving on to administration report. We have Ms. Miller here. Ms. Miller, would you like to give your report?
Well, the report is in front of you and lengthy again as usual, but I did want to let you know that we received the check from CSX for $5,000 today for the fire department. We originally had applied for 25,000 for air packs, and 5,000 is welcome. That is enough money to buy 2 of them. And we'll just keep searching for more grants and keep trying to get more money in. I attended the mask managers and administrators meeting today in Columbia. It was a really good meeting. I'm exhausted from driving back and forth, but we discussed the new business license law and what's expected. The good news for us is that we adopted the model ordinance that MASC had put out. And we have all of our NAIC codes in place. So we're one step ahead of some of the other municipalities. And MASC is actually going to help us and other municipalities that request it to get everything in place by 2022, which is when the new law has to be ready. We have to be ready in order to meet the new law is what I'm trying to say. And there's several steps that we have to make, and MASC is going to guide us through that. Mr. Harvey, the attorneys will be discussing the same thing in the December meeting, according to counsel from MASC. There are some new initiatives that MASC is trying to bring forward. The one that stood out the most for me is they're wanting to partner with specifically rural communities like ours and give a class and training on how to recruit retail. And once that's done, they will also take whomever is assigned to it to the annual retail convention and help them put that class in place to bring retail to our small communities that are so rural. It is very difficult to do when you are small. So I was really excited about that, and hopefully we can get in on that too. Does anybody have any questions?
No questions, Ms.
I
Miller.
think that that program is going to be a very good program. I discussed that with the other mayors that are on the Mayors Association or the Municipal Legislative Board, and that was one of the things that I brought forward talking about business licensing. And we reviewed that. I mean, it looks like it's going to be a great program, and I'm hoping that Estill will be able to take full advantage of it. So I'm glad that you got to go to that, Ms. Miller. Thank you. Mr. Savino, I saw you had your hand raised.
Just real quick, Ms. Miller, number 8 with SCDOT and their TAP grant for the sidewalk, did they say when they'd have something back to us? I know they probably 6-8 months ago, or no, probably 10 months ago, 11 months ago, they said they were getting kind of a design together. And now it looks like they're going to change due to something. Did they say what their constrictions were or when they might get something back to us?
I've been in contact with them. No, they did not give us a time frame. They're going to have to really go back to the drawing board from the design that I have, and you're welcome to come look at it anytime you want to. But what the problem is that they were going to do the sidewalk on the side of Parish Green,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and they're not able to do that because there's a ditch there. And if they were to do that, they would have to move the ditch onto the properties
Right.
adjacent to
Yeah.
the sidewalk,
Mhm.
and it's going to be a nightmare. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Plus, the right-of-way acquisition is going to be more costly.
Yeah.
So they've decided to shift it to the other side of the street, do a crosswalk to Parish Green at the end of it. So they're redesigning that, and I have no idea how long it's going to take them. They have their own time.
That's right. Okay. So that covers
One
it.
of my questions in that discussion with them was, and I can give you all a briefing on this, or a written briefing on this. This has been years ago. I want to say maybe about 4 or 5. The Methodist Church right there actually put in a historic preservation marker there, and my discussions with DOT on some of that stuff was that may actually cause, if Parish Green has to go across the street, DOT can actually not come within a certain amount of, they can't do anything without the permission. Even though that property is not owned, there's still a boundary regulation, but I think that I can talk with the church because it isn't anything that would impede on their property. And it would be something that would be of great use to those at Parish Green. I think that they will compromise with that. But anyway, are there any other questions?
No questions.
Administrative report. All right, with all hearts and minds are clear, we'll move on to item C. September 2020 income statement. Council, as always, I hope that everyone's had a chance to review this and look at the financial situation that we are in the town. And if there aren't any questions, I will entertain a motion, as always, to take this as information only. Any questions or statements?
No questions.
No questions.
I'll make a motion that we
I'll
accept the
take a motion.
Yep, I'll make a motion we accept the September 2020 income statement for information only.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, I know by raising your right hand and stating aye. Aye.
Ah,
All right. Moving on, item D, approval of ordinance 16-2020 related to establishing a hospitality tax. First reading. Council, has everyone had an opportunity to review this ordinance? And I will turn it over to Ms. Miller and let her make a statement if needed.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of the things that staff has been working on diligently, trying to find new revenues. And in consultation with Charlie Barano at Mask, he suggested the H tax, and we diligently made sure that the county is not charging it, because if the county's charging it, we can't. And upon confirmation, we decided that this was another source of revenue to the general fund, who needs it, but there's strings attached. They can only be used for certain things, and it's tourism related. 50% of the dollars can actually go towards doing things for the Bull Durham and maybe doing some more repairs there, which is good news. The other 50% has to go towards tourism type things. One thing that I know that you all had looked at was a possibility of doing a downtown revitalization plan, a master plan for the downtown, that kind of thing. Those things, and marketing, those things cost money. And this money is something that's coming in specifically geared towards that. The businesses will be collecting it and paying it to the town on a monthly basis. The packet that I gave you is going to be what's going to be sent to the businesses that actually will be affected by it. Some of them more than others. The restaurants, of course, it's 100% of whatever their sales has to be taxed, and they collect it from the customers. Some of the convenience stores, they sell food. Depending on how much of their business it is, I put together a spreadsheet that I put in your packets, just very conservatively looking at those businesses that would be affected to give you an idea of what we could possibly collect. Do not take that as this is what we're going to get, but it was just a conservative look at it. We are going to have a public hearing. It was suggested by Mask that we do that so that we give the businesses a chance to voice their opinion and answer any questions that they may have. What I plan to do is send this packet out to the businesses before the public meeting so that they can read it. It is very comprehensive. Mask provided it to me, and it explains in great detail what the process is. And I think that being given to the businesses ahead of the public hearing would be beneficial to them and beneficial to us. And with that, I guess I can entertain any questions you may have, but that's where we're at.
Go ahead,
You
Mr.
all having a
Savino.
meeting,
I know you got one.
I was just going to say, I'm glad to see Estill moving this direction. I think the majority of municipalities within South Carolina have a hospitality tax and an accommodations tax. We do already have an accommodations tax, but to go ahead and bring a hospitality tax into the fold, I know a lot of municipalities fund a lot of capital improvement projects, tourism related projects, a lot of things through a hospitality tax. So I'm glad to see Estill move in that direction.
The other good thing is that they just passed something into law that those dollars can also go towards stormwater improvements, which is new. So, there's an opportunity there either way. It's a win-win for the town as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly and that our citizens understand this correctly as well. The business, in other words, when a consumer goes into the business, they buy the product, then the business charges that tax up to 2% possibly to the consumer. At that point, the business would then collect that 2%, whatever the total sales is with, I guess, in a 30-day period, and I would assume they would turn in a check for the amount that they have collected from the consumer. It's not necessarily the business paying it out of their collection per se. It's a separate tax, and it would impact anyone traveling through Estill that stops and buys any of these items that's listed as taxable. So it's just not our citizens. When we have these storms and people are moving through, they're contributing. It's almost like a gasoline tax. Everybody pays that at the pump, whether you use it in a lawnmower or a car or a moped or what have you. So this is more of a fair tax rather than looking at some other tax that's only on the people of Estill. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
Yes. And I mean, we're trying to capitalize on things, Mr. Hammond, for the citizens. You know, I know that you know, if you look at the spreadsheet that Ms. Miller has provided for us, if we consider, you know, these businesses, they're here, we want them to remain here. It helps them if the town is doing better.
Exactly.
Some of the towns that we see that are increasing and just keep climbing, they've implemented this, and it is something that does work, and it is a tool for our tool to work.
I also want to make sure that I understood this part correct. I think our citizens and our businesses, excuse me, I'm tongue tied today, need to also understand that if the county decides they want to pass a hospitality tax, we have no control over that. Our businesses will have to pay that, and that money would go directly to the county, not necessarily impacting us directly. So if we do this before the county does, then that money goes to us regardless of what the county does because we started it before the county. Am I correct on that assumption?
That's my
That is correct, sir.
understanding. You'll have to ask Mr. Harvey that because lawyers are always finding a way to rewrite the English language and
you're correct,
what
Mr.
yes
Hadwin.
and what no means.
You're correct, Mr. Hadwin. State law across the board says if a municipality has a program in place before a county, then the county cannot adopt anything that affects that municipality without municipality's permission. So if Estill goes ahead and does this, then the Hampton County is out with respect to revenue collected within the town limits of Estill.
So in other words, it would be to the citizens' best interest for us to do this before the county would come in and do it, and then we would have no gain out of it possibly. Because then that money that's generated from the citizens of Estill could go somewhere like Early Branch or Yamasee, and Estill could possibly not see a dime of what's collected from that hospitality tax.
Possibly.
Thank you, Mr. Hack.
I just want to make sure
that well, you're stating something that the citizens, if they view this, they will realize that we're trying to be on the forefront, on the front end of this. And I don't know where the county stands on this, but I know that we need to get the first reading and second reading and be done with it as soon as possible, so that we take advantage to boost our community versus getting a percentage if we are so lucky to be chosen on this side of the county, which I think we all know how that goes.
Well,
Anyway,
I just wanted to make
thank you,
sure
Mr. Howard.
that the citizens understand our motive, our logic behind this, that it's just not throwing an extra tax. If we want some things over here, we need to be proactive and help our citizens where we're not always asking them to foot the bill. This is people passing through our town as well that's paying this. So all these hunters that we have coming in here, they will be chipping in on this. Anyone coming through here for the holidays, they're paying this. And most importantly, it stays here within the town of Estill. It doesn't go anywhere else.
Exactly. Thank you, sir. Are there any more comments, statements, questions? All right, then at this time, I will take a motion for the approval of ordinance number 16-2020 related to establishing a hospitality tax. First reading. Council.
Mr. Mayor, if may, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 16-2020 for the first reading for establishing a hospitality tax.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on. Approval of ordinance number 17-2020 to amend ordinance 09-2015 derelict or abandoned vehicles for the purpose of transferring enforcement from the building official to the code enforcement officer. First reading. Ms. Miller, do you have any comments on this, or does any?
Well, I don't know the history behind this, but apparently in 2015, a lot of the weeds and nuisances and everything, including the derelict vehicles, was changed by ordinance. Most of them read the building official or designee of the town, but this one did not. It just said the building official. We do not have a building official. We have the county do the building permits. And this is one of the code enforcement officer's duties. So all I did was change building official to code enforcement so that he can actually go out and do it. And the ordinance says he can. That makes sense?
So the way I've read it, council, is instead of having the county official to come, which has taken on several occasions months, years to get to something to render an enforcement policy for the town, we are now able to do that ourselves. If I'm not misspeaking, is that correct, Ms. Miller and Mr. Hart?
That is correct. The building official is not, he encodes, he enforces building code, not derelict vehicles, grass, that kind of thing. Building official only enforces building codes. We will still use him on buildings that are unsafe. We will still use him on any of those types of things because they are structural. And he has the authority by the state to go ahead and condemn those, where a code enforcement officer does not have that authority. But for these vehicles and this kind of thing, the code enforcement has absolutely that authority.
Are there any questions or statements?
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask Mr. Miller or Mr. Harvey, maybe you can provide me some clarification of this. As it is written, if county agency was to come, they were to enforce this, at this point in time, the county would receive the money, receive any funding from that because it was in that is clear as mud or confusing.
Marty?
Have a bad connection. I didn't
Yes,
get any of
connection.
All right, I'll repeat it for you, Mr.
You're not restating that?
As it stands, the county's building official has the authority to come in and enforce this. So my question is, if that's the case, if there's any fines collected for this, does that money stay with the county, and does the town get any of that at this present time?
No, there's still, he would still issue an ordinance summons, and that summons would be a town of Estill ordinance summons. And it would be heard in the town of Estill's municipal court, and any fine assessed by our municipal judge would go into the treasury of the town of Estill.
Okay, but this would just give our personnel more authority to enforce it.
Exclusive authority.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Council, any more questions or statements?
No questions.
No questions.
All right, this time I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 17-2020 to amend ordinance 0915 for the dereliction of abandoned vehicles.
First reading.
First reading. Apologize about that. Yes, sir.
I second it.
A motion and properly seconded. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on. Item F, approval of resolution number 2020 dash, well, I think that, should that not be, no, I guess that's 2020-13, allowing to open a new bank account for seizures and forfeitures from the police department. Council is pretty simple. We're just looking to have a better accounting process of the seizure, the seized property, and it would potentially at some point be sold, or it, which I guess, Miss Miller, if I'm not mistaken, I mean it could be fines as well that would be in there. Once property is returned, there's a fine levied. Is that correct, or am I wrong on that?
No, this is exclusive.
No.
This is exclusive
Seizure.
cash that might be seized in an arrest, or
Okay,
money
I was
that
mistaken.
the town would receive from impoundment of vehicles. Fines.
All right, well, Council.
Fines.
I have a question.
Yes,
If
ma'am.
a car is seized, and it has a substantial amount of money in it, and say it has drugs in it as well, will we be in the right order to seize that money, to bank that money, or that money goes elsewhere?
No, ma'am, it's, I'm sorry, go ahead, Marty.
I
Go ahead, Marty.
honestly don't know the answer to that. On the one hand, the
I
money
do.
could be considered to be evidence, and it'd have to be held for evidence purposes. If there was a conviction, the money would be forfeited to the town, and then it would be able to go into the drug fund according to state law.
Isn't that that is circumstantial?
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's circumstantial, Councilwoman Bolden. I mean,
Okay.
if it is proven in the court of law, then it can be, right or wrong. If it was right, then they're returned. But that's all circumstantial. But go ahead, Ms. Miller.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify something. If a vehicle is stopped, there's a bunch of money in there, there's a bunch of drugs, and whatever else. That money gets confiscated. It gets
Yes.
a picture taken, it goes into evidence, but we cannot keep it at the police department. By statute, it's got to go to a separate account and be kept there until the case is resolved. If the case is resolved and it's thrown out, then we have to cut a check from that account to that person. However, if it goes through the court system, prosecuted, the whole bit, then the court will release it to us, and then we can put it into the bank.
This is more of an escrow type account. We're
Exactly.
required by law to have for safekeeping of certain funds pending adjudication of guilt. And so we've got to have a fund like this established.
Mm-hmm.
Well, lawyer advises that we have to have a
So-
fund like this. Council, is there any other questions?
So
Okay,
that money
well,
that is seized out of the vehicle, it don't have to be turned over to SLED or anything. It just got to be put into account.
That is correct. It has to be logged as evidence, pictures of evidence, and immediately has to go into the account to be
Okay.
held until it's adjudicated.
What are we doing now?
We
with
cannot
those
hold it in the
papers?
police department.
So
I'm
what are
sorry?
we doing with those? Say, for instance, what have we done with those funds in the past?
I will be honest with you, I really don't know, and I cannot answer that question. Ms. O'Banner, do you know?
Miss O'Banner,
Well,
wasn't
that
that,
has
that
to
went
go
into the
through
police?
that has to go through the chief. I'm not sure what they were doing back there.
But I
Ms.
know there's a
Bolden, we
lot.
haven't had too many cases where there's been, you know, a substantial amount of money. There has been small amounts. I know that one of the bigger ones was one of the ones that happened in Yemassee that the county actually had.
Yeah.
But I believe that that money is, I mean, as pictures are taken of it, and there was a fund, but it just was not set up correctly. I'm not exactly sure if that went straight to SLED, if that went to, we would have to discuss that with the chief. I know that he was doing it what was considered the proper way, but this is the way that it has to be done. And I can ask him that and have him give us a report on that if you would like.
I was just wondering, you know, I just
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah, it
think,
is.
you know, we should
That's clear.
find out the proper way to, before we go open up, get clarification before we go out for this and not need. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you can go ahead and pass it. We don't have to use it, but I prefer getting some more clarification on that when it comes down to that
Well,
particular seized money and stuff like that.
Is that something
At
Mr.
this
With all due
Alderman can come back
respect,
with us?
if I may,
Ms. Miller,
with
please.
all due respect, if I may, Mayor,
Go ahead.
this is
Go ahead.
required by statute. This is required by statute. This is the way it's supposed to be done. I don't know whether there was a lot of money confiscated in the past or not. This was brought to us immediately when they stopped somebody a couple of weeks ago and they got some money. And the chief brought it to me and Miss O'Banner and explained to us that we're supposed to have an account. That was the first I ever heard of this. I consulted with the attorney. The attorney has agreed that it is statutorily required. We will ask the chief how it was handled in the past. And I that was my same question. But I wanted to make sure that
Well,
we got
you
this
answered-
in place immediately.
Well, you answered my question. That's why I wanted to know, you know, did we ask the chief prior to this? So you answered my question. I just want to know if this was the protocol that he set forth with you in reference to it.
Yes,
Because when
ma'am.
it's dealing with the police department, that's a different entity from us. That's you answered the question that I was asking. Thank you.
Okay.
Very, very good question, Ms. Bolden. I appreciate that very much. I'm glad that the chief did bring that to them. So I mean that answers it. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Well, at this time, if there are no other questions, I'll take a motion to approve for the approval of resolution 2020-13.
Mr. Mayor, for me, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve resolution 2020-13.
Second.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, I know by raising your right hand and stating aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving on, request for donation from Estill Middle School. Ms. Miller.
The middle school said that I put this on the agenda, see if the council would consider a donation for their program.
I did
It's
not
called-
see a number on that the other day when I looked at it.
No, they didn't request a specific amount. They just wanted to know if if the town wanted to donate for the PBIS, which is Positive Behavior and Intervention Supports Program.
Council, the only thing I will state is we are during some very critical financial times. I do want to support our schools. I think that we need to have Miss O'Banner and Miss Miller look and see what we can afford, and maybe do it in maybe 2 to 3 tranches over a period of time. I mean, the children are our future. I want to support them and their programs and these teachers that are doing what they are doing during the times that we are in. I am in agreement with supporting our schools, but we also need to look at what we can financially do, and not overextend ourselves, which has happened in the past. So if anyone's willing to, I mean, I'm willing to hear what anyone has to say on this issue. I just think we need to consider where we are. We have the town to take care of, which includes the children of this town. Ms. Miller, do you have a figure in mind? Have you and Ms. O'Banner discussed this and come up with something that y'all think would be reasonable?
You have $600 that is budgeted in this year's budget for donations. And it's up to the discretion of the council as to whom they want to do it with. So,
Council, I suggest we not spend all of our money in one spot. You know, we never know what may arise. We may have a need for a donation, and as we go through this fiscal year and we start to dwindle down, we may be able to give a little bit more. I would suggest, I don't know, it's up in the air. I'll let y'all come up with a suggestion as to what y'all feel.
If you wanted to give them,
go,
if we wanted to give them $100, I mean, that would be 1/6 of what we have. And that's a fair, reasonable donation, whatever that's worth.
and at some point down the line, if maybe as we progress through the year, a little bit, maybe another. But anyway, any other council would like to chime in on that?
The only question I would ask, Mayor, let me back up. I agree we need to invest in our young people because they're going to be picking up this torch eventually and carrying it, and hopefully in the right direction. Is this a one-time occurrence donation, or is this something quarterly? I know working in the school system, certain programs are a quarterly base, some are semesterly based, or just yearly based. So I guess for me to make a decision, I would need to know, is this donation something we do every 9 weeks? Is this something we do once a semester, or is this a donation on an annual basis? Because if we start out with 100 and it's supposed to be a 9-week period, and then we've committed now to $400 out of our 6. Does that make sense to everyone? And not knowing what we may have to encounter between now and June the 30th of 2021, we may have to pull that money and balance something else at this point. So for me personally, I need to know how often and what is the minimum that they're asking for.
This
Mr.
would be
Hadwin,
a one-time situation. And that's the way it would be donated, as a one-time donation to this program, and with a letter saying, you know, that we are in support of our school system, but and as we see fit, due to what we have budgeted, we will try our best to commit to donating more. But at this point, this would be the donation that we can give. It's a one-time donation, and there's no contract or no reoccurring funds
right.
to draw from. That we would be, this is what we're going to donate, and as we can, we will help you to support this program. That is as simple as that. Nothing complex, just a one-time donation, Mr. Howard.
Okay, that's fine.
Any other questions? Does everybody, well, I guess we can have that brought to a motion for that. And I think that that's fair. And we can look at as the year progresses. This time I'll take a motion for the suggestion from Mr. Sabino, another request for a donation from Estill Middle School for a one-time donation.
I make a motion that we accept Mr. Savino's request for a one-time donation of $100 to Estill Middle School's program.
A second.
It's been motion and probably second. And all in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye. Aye. All right, as with the amended agenda, now we move on to item H, which will be the tree-free contract. Ms. Miller.
We had an agreement with an affiliate of theirs originally for that Rondo Donax. And Mr. Lucas, I'm sorry, bear with me here because in 2015 signed an amendment to that agreement. The original agreement was Green to Green, which is an affiliate of this company, Tree Free Biomass. But the amendment pretty much said that Green to Green wanted us to negotiate with Tree Free and pull out of the agreement. And Tree Free did harvest that year and also harvested in 2016, but there was never any agreement signed between the town and Tree Free, which explains why there haven't been any payments on this lease since 2016. I believe when Mr. McCroskey was here, he realized that and put together a lease, actually had Marty put together a lease to be effective October 1st of 2019 and go on through October 31st. I'm sorry, November 1st. No. End on October 31st of 2024, which is the lease I have in front of me. was going to bring it to the council, but never did. So then about 4 months ago, I got involved because I found the file and I was like, oh, okay. And since then, we have had an issue with DHEC where this Arundel has grown so big and so large and it's spread. They have told us that we have to get rid of it and clear our spray heads. The company, Tree Free, has been advised by their attorney that for liability purposes, for them not to come out and clear that area until a lease is signed. So at this point, we really don't have anything, and I'll let Mr. Harvey go ahead and explain to you that there's really no legal recourse than to either sign it or find some other way to get rid of the Arundel.
That's pretty much it, Ms. Miller. When the Tree Free in 2016 did that last harvest, Mr. Danny signed a document that pretty much that says that other lease was over and ended, and the parties released each other from any further responsibility, which means there's no contractual relationship. There's no contractual duty on the part of Tree Free to come back to Estill unless we have a new contract. So, the council's choices are sign this contract and get Tree Free in and get them to harvest this thing and pay us some money, or go someplace else. For example, this company from over, was it Yemassee or Varnville or someplace that did all the brush cutting out there a year or more ago.
That was Brown, wasn't it, Savina?
Well, just a quick question, and since this is a contractual matter, do we need to have this in executive session, or do we need to have this in open session?
Well, you can talk. I mean, I'm giving you the facts.
Yes.
The town's legal position. We can talk in executive session. There's not, but the facts are there's no contract.
Okay.
So, we got you got two choices.
I'll jump in on this. I think at a quick glance, looking through the contract, it says it's a 5-year agreement, and then there's a reference in here on number 8 to 156 acres being actively farmed under this lease. And
that's a typo.
Right.
I was going to bring that up. It's a typo. It's only 16 acres.
So I'm probably not a huge fan of the 5-year obligation to the town. I mean, I don't think we want to obligate ourselves to provide those people 5 years of farming rights to that property without a mechanism to cancel it. It says you can, or without a formal mechanism to cancel it, whatever that's worth. And then, like you say, that 16.
If there is a exit on it, I feel more comfortable. If they with Mr. Harvey and Dave, if they do not with the contract, we are not bound to that.
Right. They never signed it either, so I can make changes and send it to their guy, and then bring it back to council at a later time, hopefully very soon later time, so that council can approve it, and we avoid the situation that with DHEC that we don't want to be involved in.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask Ms. Miller a question.
Yes, sir.
In reference to DHEC, if I understood you correctly, DHEC said we had to remedy this problem. Did they give us a time frame where we needed to get something done? Because that's going to determine how quickly we need to act on this end of things.
We have time.
DHEC did agree with their proposal to come out and clear the spray heads, only the spray heads, which was their main concern, as soon as possible. And that's what we've been trying to accomplish. And allow them to actually harvest the entire harvest when they're supposed to, which is in March and April. So we're trying to get this done as soon as possible. I mean, you know, DHEC wants this done now.
What do they do in between April and November? I mean, that stuff grows like wildfire every day of the week.
I agree.
That's one of the next points that I wanted to add is that if we're going to have to deal with DEC on this situation, I feel that we need to have a little more review. We have a little bit of time, a little bit of leeway with DHEC because they understand that we are working on this situation. We don't need to be sitting back. We need to move forward and push this forward. We also need to push this company to honor some of the obligations in my mind. But that's one of the things that I feel needs to be a part of the agreement is that if, like you say, Mr. Savino, if they're not doing anything yet, April to the following year, and they're paying us this small amount of money, you know, for the acreage, then we need to consider that as a part of the agreement that they keep those spray heads clean. Area of, I would say, no less than 30 feet perimeter.
There goes the acreage.
And I would just have them, I mean, they could
that'll impede a little bit of their acreage, but the thing is my experience from irrigation is the way looking at the height of our heads. And because I did, when I first came on council 10 years ago, I did this study to try to improve our system out there. Knowing the Comet systems that we have on those risers, and looking at what their angle of repose from where the water will come down, if there is not a decent enough buffer zone, that water will not disperse correctly and could, if they were to do soil analysis, I believe that they would find that it's permeating the soil a little bit heavier in locations because of the donax blocking water flow and transfer across an area. They're going to have to, you know, and I think that they'll be all right with that. That's not, it needs, I'd have to look at it again, but I think that this is a work in progress. It has been brought to our attention that something has got to be done. It needs to be done in a faster manner. And you know, we've got Mr. Harvey and Ms. Miller to do that. So I would have them bring this some suggestions to us now, and we can follow through with this, you know, in a week or 2 weeks once we have a revision of some of the contractual stuff, allowing
Mr. Mayor, if I may
discuss. Go ahead.
You do have another option, and it's entirely up to you, but I want to give you that option. And the option is not to do the lease at all. So we don't have DHEC
Don't
on
do the
us.
lease. Then we're looking at, I mean, we got charged a large amount of money for the company to come in and to do a bush cutting the last time. It's not going to be, you know, inexpensive. And looking at our financial situation, if we can work something with DHEC and work something with this company, but I don't like tying us down for 5 years. Is something. I mean, I'm, you know, part of this council has, you know, a few more months if re-election occurs, but I don't want to lock this town into something for 5 years when they have something come up in 3 years that could potentially financially put us into the upper echelon. Mr. Savino.
Yeah, I think the 5 years was something that really caught my attention, but also too, for whatever it's worth, just conceptually, I don't have any problem with these folks cutting this stuff, but I think they need to be a partner with us on this. And what I mean is, we have, whatever obligations we have for DHEC, it needs to be a part of whatever contract that it is that we enter into with them. So for example, if we've got to maintain this stuff and keep a certain perimeter and this, that, or the other, I mean, I think they need to be aware of this. This isn't just come cut it when you feel like it and we deal with the fallout, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. I think that they need to be held liable just as much as we are. I mean, Mr. Harvey would have to speak on how that will work. And it have to be a heck of a contract. But if they're partnered with us, that means they're vested in this town. They're vested in what they're doing. And for the past 5 years, they haven't been. And that's due to some hesitation because of before our time, some problems that occurred with agreeing on exactly how things needed to go. I think that a partnership will work better, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Ms. Miller?
So, Mr.
Harvey,
Mayor,
how do you? Go ahead, Ms. Miller.
no, go ahead.
Well, I just, I think that it's going to be a multifaceted situation that we're going to have to look at here. A partnership with the town, with a company that has been doing something on our property. We haven't gotten payment for it. I know that we found that we probably can't pursue that and pursue back payment, but we need to address that. We need to have a partnership. We need to have a good agreement with them. We need to have a good agreement with DHEC, or they need to understand that we have laws and rules and regulations that we have to follow with DHEC. And if those laws, rules, and regulations cannot be met by the town of Estill because of their, laziness or lackadaisical ways, that it comes back on us. And they're paying us pennies for something. This is our facility. These are our rules. These are our regulations. Take it or leave it. 5 years is a long time.
Long time.
And so I want to make sure that we are, that the town's protected 5 years, 4 years from now, 2 years from now, that we are meeting the requirements that we are supposed to meet. I don't want to be taken advantage of. I don't want the taxpayers of this town to be taken advantage of.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Sedina.
No, go ahead, Ms. Miller, go ahead.
I guess what I'm hearing, thank you. What I'm hearing is the consensus appears to be to come back to you with a different agreement and have Mr. Harvey incorporate whatever DHEC's regulations are into that agreement and make it a lot stronger. And at that point, we'll see. And of course, not 5 years. We'll try to see if we can negotiate with them for a lesser period.
Well, we'll just have to tell them you're not going to agree to longer than that. You might be willing to agree to an automatic extension clause or something like that, unless you give them notice ahead of time. That's common.
Yeah. Okay.
First right of refusal.
Stuff like that. Yep.
I guess not to get into the legalese language, but cure time and cure language. So you have X amount of days to cure something, and if you don't, you have X fees if you don't. Because DHEC, just like now, they tell us to do it, we have to do it. So that needs to be understood on their end, and there needs to be a mechanism that we can enforce that with them.
Right.
If they don't meet the time frame,
there's a penalty.
Then we're going to hold them liable. I don't know, Mr. Marty, you have to do some typing.
Until we get a written agreement with them, we can't hold them liable for anything. So we got to get something in place.
Well, Council, we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up a lot of loose ends here. This is just one of them. We're making some major moves tonight that I believe put us in a better standing. If I'm not mistaken, now I will open this up to the floor. And if I'm not wrong here, what I would suggest on this is to have Ms. Miller and Mr. Harvey do on our behalf what they're supposed to do to have us set forth in the correct direction, the best direction for the future of our town with negotiating with this company, and bring this back to us, with all the research. Well, I say research, but the timelines and everything that we're having to deal with DHEC and this company, and have something that we can look at, and maybe even have, Miss Miller, you're negotiating with these people, you're talking with these people. Mr. Harvey is going to advise you and us on the best way to accept. You bring us back the best answer, and then we have to push that, or we have to vote on that. Council, that's the way I feel. That's what I advise. That's just me, and we can go from there. Is there any other comments or statements that need to be made, or questions?
The only thing I'll say, Mayor, is stating that we paid someone to cut it before. If there's a way that we can get paid for them to do that, then it's better.
Let me clarify that, if I may, please. The people that we paid
Yes.
to bush hog, they were only supposed to bush hog grass, not the Arundel at all.
They did.
They were told not to touch it. They did
We
not
mowed
touch
it.
it.
We mowed it. We mowed it to the ground, and then we sprayed it.
How long ago was
And I'll
that?
tell you why we sprayed it, because we were in violation,
Yep.
and that company would not come out and do it. And I couldn't do it personally because I'm the mayor, and it's conflict of interest. Nobody would. No, they would not answer us.
Let's just focus on the fact that we need to get a contract negotiated with these folks, and let's just get past this.
Okay, sorry, I was misinformed. Yeah, let's just.
Not going any further.
I say we get correct. We get everything laid out in front of us on what our best solution is for this. Take this as information only, and we move forward.
I'll start working on it in the morning.
Me too.
Any other questions or statements?
I have something to add, but it's not in reference to that, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
In the previous years, when Thomas Owens had partnered with Self-Help in Bluffton during the Christmas holidays for the toy shop for the children, and he used to do applications, and then they will provide the toys for the children in the town. Well, since Thomas Owens has passed, the community one still exists. So what we're asking as a whole, can we use the parking lot, because it has a roundabout, that people come pick the applications up, fill them out, and drop them back off? Would that be a problem? Or would we allow them to do it? It's not in the building.
Ms. Bolden, I have no objection to it, as long as we are correct with application, just so and I'll have, this is council decision. I know that program. I actually helped former Mayor Owens twice with it, with drop boxes, and it is a great program. And it is something that I believe in, because it allows children to receive stuff that they may not get. during
And
this
it's
season.
coordinated through
And to see
Bluffton
the faces of the
Self-Help.
children. So what we
So-
will need to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Miller, all we have to have is just that application because of everything that is going on in this country with COVID and with, we don't want anybody to come back on us and say, I got it from y'all at y'all's town hall when I drop stuff off and we get sued. We just have to be protected. This is something that is going around in every town in this state or across this country, across this world. We've got to make sure that we're protected because the last thing we need is another financial tragedy to hit us. But I'll leave that up to council. What I would say, Councilwoman Bolden, is get with Ms. Miller and get the proper let's follow the proper protocol. Let's get proper documentation, unless Mr. Hornby advises us differently. That is what I would suggest. We don't even need really a vote on that, and unless somebody has a major objection. I think that's. I'll let if anyone has a comment on that.
And it's just for the registration part. They're just picking up an application, filling it out and handing it back with the proper information for us to send over to Bluffton Self-Help. And the town name is nowhere about it. And I understand
As long as that's the only thing we've got to look. We've got to look. Myself, you, Councilman Hadwin, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Savino. We're responsible. Something happens, taxpayers look at us. So as long as we have the proper protocol, I'm all for it. I think it is a great program.
Ms.
Miller.
Would you like to ask Mr. Harvey his input on that?
Nope. It's based on what she's saying. They're just going to be driving. It's a public parking lot. So if they're using it for that purpose that she's saying, limited purpose of picking up an application, turn it back in, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, that's all.
If I may, the application, Ms. Bolden, that you fill out,
Yes, ma'am.
the application that you always fill out for your food drives is the same application. That's all we need.
Okay. And the street
so that way we're covered.
Right. And we were gonna do over by the police annex on Catherine Street. Just set a table out in front of that where they could just drive up to Catherine Street, pick up the application, fill it out, hand it back, keep going.
Again, just do another application for that and the chief and I'll approve it. As long as we have those documents, we are not liable. Because the way that
I will provide you with, I'll provide you with a copy of the application so you'll know what it is, a copy of the dates, so you have it all in place.
You got
and you'll see, okay? I'll drop that to you tomorrow, okay?
Sounds great. Sounds great.
So Ms. Bolden, you have a food drive that you need any assistance with or something? You having a food drive?
We do the food drive every other Saturday. And it's just like a drive-by. They open up the trunk and they put the food inside. No one comes in the building except for the 7 workers. But this is the toy drive that he used to do every Christmas for the children. I think they dispersed on the 16th of December. So now it's just a toys that's needed for this area, and it's for 12 residents of Beaufort, Jasper, Carlton, and Hampton County. And they have to provide us with a copy of the child's birth certificate, and they have to fill out the form, and they have to show proof of residence for Estill, for Hampton County, either light bill, water bill, something to show their residence and the age of the child.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let us know when that occurs, And I feel like the rest of the council and myself, we'll take part in assisting and that to show a uniform front of support for our community. You know, proper protocol in place. But thank you, Ms. Bolden, for that.
Oh,
And
and
get with Ms. Miller on that.
Ms. Audrey is gonna come to you, Ms. Miller, in reference to Christmas in the park, like a movie night, but it's social distancing, and she said she'll probably be asking them to stay in their vehicles to watch the movie. So she's gonna come by you tomorrow and present that to you to come back to council with it.
It doesn't need to come back to the council. It's again, part of that same ordinance that covers those special events that are being held on our property or our streets, like
Okay.
parades or anything like this. So it just
Okay.
goes through the same exact procedure.
Okay.
Is that
okay,
application? Okay.
Okay.
All right, council. My wife just texted me. I hadn't missed bath time yet. My boy, we got to move. On that. If anybody's got anything to add,
Nothing.
happy
You
wife,
best
happy
get
life
there.
is what I've got to say. If I can get home and bathe my little boy, it would be great. So I'm gonna say, if anybody has anything to add, and if all hearts and minds are clear, we close. But does anybody have anything to bring before council tonight?
I think you still probably need to address H, Mayor, public comments. Just make sure we don't
Yes.
overlook nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have
Thank
any?
you,
I'm
Mayor
sorry.
Pro Tem.
Now we're on to public comments. Ms. Miller.
None.
All right, I'm
Okay.
getting ahead of
Wanna make sure we didn't
myself.
overlook nothing.
As I always do, to my left, Ms. Savino, do you have anything to bring forward?
If you're in a rush, I'm going to start off with chapter 1 of a book. I'm going to start reading it. Hold everybody up.
You're on my babysitter bus, by the way. All right, moving on. Councilwoman Bolden.
No questions.
Thank you, ma'am. To my right, Councilman Howard.
I would just like to tell everybody happy Thanksgiving because we won't be together anymore until December. So happy Thanksgiving. I hope everyone receives all their blessings. All our citizens, please stay safe. And thank you for everything that you have done for us in the community this year. So happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you. Same to you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
No, I have no comments, Mayor.
All right, council, I appreciate everything each one of you do. Being a part of this community, this small town that we live in, and the times that we live in. And I promise you, I don't forget it. I know that each one of you is a vital key to this community. I appreciate all of our employees and the hard work they do to get us through the days when they're not as positive. I think we live in a wonderful town and a wonderful community with wonderful people. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion
Ms.
to
Miller,
adjourn.
do you have something?
I'm sorry. I know you want to get home. I just want to say happy Thanksgiving too. I will not be here. I'm going to see my grandkids. So all the blessings to y'all. And I'll see you when I get back. Go for it, Mr. Savino.
Motion to
Safe
adjourn.
travel.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Savino, do you have something to say?
He's saying good night. He's saying good night, Mayor. He's
You
not
need a
saying,
motion.
he's not saying anything. He's saying good night. You saying your wife texting you? My husband staring me in his face, my face for his.
And I'm saying, what was he about to say?
He was
Motion
about to adjourn.
adjourn.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
I
All
second.
right.
I second it.
It's been motion and probably seconded. All in favor, I know you by raising your right hand and stating aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Y'all have a good evening.
Bye.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you all.